Thank you for joining us for Sleep Solutions, Gut Health, Restorative Rituals, and Restful Nights. My name is Kim Stevens. I'm the National Sales Director here at ION, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by two incredible women and experts in their field, whom I have the privilege of working with as well, Marlene Mier and Wendi Michelle. In this webinar today, we're going to discuss why sleep matters, how sleep impacts our health, our mood, and our ability to heal and thrive. Rest for the gut, the link between our digestive function and our sleep quality, the power of sleep rituals, small habits you can incorporate to achieve more restful sleep. And finally, we will be offering you an alternative to the typical nightcap with a nourishing bedtime recipe. So, Marlene and Wendi, I would love to kick us off by having you both introduce yourselves to our audience, and maybe you can each tell us what you're dreaming up these days.
It's a juicy way to start. Well, I'll go ahead. My name is Marlene. I am delighted to be joining you today. I am a professional life and health coach practicing for 25 years now. My passion project currently is so much fun. I am creating, think of old school call-in radio show, only coaching.
Love that. Love it.
That's amazing. I'm Wendi Michelle, and I am a wellness strategist. I specialize in CPG, product development and formulation. I started as a holistic nutritionist over 20 years ago. And as I was in that, I realized that there's not a lot of things in the marketplace to help people be successful with the things that I was coaching them on. So I decided to go ahead and shift into the manufacturing space and start creating products that I would actually recommend. And it turns out there's a lot more work to do there. So that's what I do. And my current passion project, in all honesty, and this might sound like I'm cheating, but truly the passion of my life is to shift supply chain and get consumers what they deserve on the shelves. And so I kind of live my passion project, and even this and the products that I'm able to formulate for Ion are really fulfilling a lot of the passion project that I have, going on currently.
Oh, that's beautiful. That was such an inspiring way to start our conversation. Thank you both for sharing your dreams, and I can't wait to see what comes from them. Hopefully, speaking them into existence in a space like this will add to the speed in which they come true. So let's roll on over to the topic at hand. It's not uncommon to hear people make jokes about being sleep deprived, but true sleep deprivation is really not a laughing matter. Just a few statistics here. In the US, an estimated 50 to 70 million people have a sleep disorder, with insomnia being the most common one, affecting 1 in 3 adults today. Adults age 27 and above who sleep less than 6 hours in a day are 7.5 times more likely to have a higher BMI. Adults sleeping 5 hours or less in a day are 2.5 times more likely to develop diabetes. And there's a 45% increase in the risk of heart attack in adults sleeping 5 hours or less per night. So those are just a couple of really alarming statistics. But I would love to hear more from you ladies about the biology of how this happens. How do we end up with diabetes as a downstream consequence of not getting enough sleep or getting good quality sleep, for example? Marlene, would you
Well,
like to start us off? Tell us a bit more about
sure,
it.
sure. I would love to. We're going to actually be exploring two topics today, sleep and rest. And while they're usually bunched together, they're also similar, and they're also similar in surprising ways. Both of those things are really talking about cycles of regeneration, which means, when we sleep, all of our body systems and all of our organs regenerate. When we don't sleep well or enough, we actually impair and interfere with our body's innate wisdom to heal. But here's the tricky thing. Our society wears exhaustion like a badge of honor. We are all conditioned in the hustle and burn culture, and we've all heard the horrible saying of "I'll sleep when I'm dead." And unfortunately, sadly, because we're not sleeping, we're hastening that process much quicker than we should. We chase, we grind, we push, we run at lightning speed, and it demands it demands a response now. In fact, I wonder how many people who are listening to this right now are multitasking as we speak. And here's the hint, no one can multitask. It's actually very difficult and hard on your brain. So you may want to consider that. And then because work life is now remote, the separation of work and our downtime has been completely altered, thus also altering our biorhythms. What this means is our whole grind and urgency culture leads to us running on cortisol, caffeine, and a whole lot of fumes, which leads to burnout, accidents, injury, mistakes, mental health issues, metabolic issues, as Kim was discussing, physical pain issues, and the list goes on and on. But what we're here to introduce and invite you to think about is the real magic and the real healing that does produce real results actually happens in the pause. It happens in the breath, it happens through the rest, and it happens through recalibration when we sleep. And this is where true flow begins and everything changes. In fact, it's in that pause or those quiet moments that our life and our body speaks most loudly. It's where we can hear the body's trying to get our attention. We call those things symptoms, which ironically we want to cover up. The invitation to you is, when was the last time have you stopped and listened to your body? The invitation to create spaces of rest throughout your day. Have some quiet time. Put down the screen and go outside into natural light. Pause, breathe. Are you tired? Are you hungry? Are you stiff and need to move your body? Are you feeling emotional? Let it flow. When was the last time you looked in the sky? Looked at the distance? And here's a really important part of the healing process. When we give our eyes natural light nutrition, eyes in the first light in the morning and also the last light in the evening actually alters our biorhythms. When you honor this need, your heart, your central nervous systems, and your adrenals will thank you. And so with that, Michelle or Wendi, would you like to talk about the sleep portion of this?
Yeah, so I mean, sleep is so critical because it's when you're actually shut down. It's the analogy that I like to use often, and it's a wild picture, is when there's a bunch of children playing at school and then they all go home for the day and the janitor is there to clean up the mess. If that janitor doesn't show up and the children just come into school each and every day, imagine what the school would look like, let alone specifically maybe the bathrooms, we'll say. And sleep is the janitor, sleep is that cleanup crew, sleep is that critical component that most people don't ever see because it happens when no one's there. And that's really what's going on throughout every system, organ, gland, function of the body when we're sleeping. And so if sleep isn't available and if it's not in the proper time frame, if it's not supported and proactively, intentionally part of the day, in the same way that we schedule going to the gym or we schedule time with our friends or schedule work, if we're not scheduling our sleep in the same way and prioritizing it in the same way, there's a lot of mixed cues between our bodies and the awake moments. And so making sure that those cues are part of the day and prioritized is really critical to making sure that the cleanup crew knows when they can get in and that the cleanup crew has the proper amount of time to clean up what is necessary for the next day to start afresh. And so missing that obviously is going to contribute to all kinds of health issues because there's not time for the body to actually do what it's been designed to do, specifically when we're unconscious and sleeping. So it's massive, and I think that there isn't really a condition that we can't tie back to a lack of sleep or improper sleep or not the proper amount of sleep cycles and the REM that's necessary. So I mean, it definitely goes deep.
Amazing. Well, and that is interesting in that we understand here at ION how intimately connected the gut and the sleep cycles are. And understanding that roughly 95 of your percent of your serotonin is a neurotransmitter that is regulating your sleep-wake cycle, is produced in your gut. And when you have leaky gut or an imbalanced microbiome, you're impeding, or you could potentially be impeding your body's production of serotonin production by having that leaky gut happening. And then additionally, leaky gut is impairing the absorption of nutrients that are essential to sleep regulation, such as magnesium and B vitamins. And those deficiencies can result in sleep problems. But I would love for you guys to talk about or elaborate more on how intimately connected our gut function and our digestion is to our sleep quality.
Go ahead, Wendy. I'll let you kick that one off.
Yeah, I particularly like to speak on the digestion element of it, and how so much of our circulation and the energy that our body has is directed towards the gut when there's food in it, or when there's items that need to be digested. And so anytime you're trying to restore something, the body's going to always choose where the resources need to go first. And so if there is undigested or not properly digested foods, or just new food that needs to be digested in general, all resources are going to go and handle that first. And so any other resources or needs that the body has is going to be put on pause. And so it's going to disallow for any of those other functions to take place during sleep. So making sure that digestion, one, is done well and complete is critical. And then, of course, making sure that there's time and space between meals or food for when you actually want to be able to sleep is also a really important factor for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Marlene, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, sure. And typically it takes us 2 to 6 hours for the stomach to empty after a meal. And that, of course, depends on what you eat. So if you're eating a really heavy meal, let's say at 8 p.m., and you're crawling into bed at 10, your digestive process is just beginning. So to support what Wendi just said, all the activity is now going to go to digest that food. So the regeneration of the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, the liver, the everything is going to be, pushed back if attuned to it all, because it's going to take a good 6 hours, 2 to 6 hours for that even to make it to the small intestine. And once 90% of the food gets to the small intestine, it takes another 4 hours for that to completely digest it.
There's your whole night.
There's your whole night. So to Wendy's point, what part of the cleaning is happening? And the answer would be none of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you add to the fact that if you have a leaky gut, or your boundaries in the cells are not holding in those nutrients and actually utilizing those nutrients for energy and fuel, then they're just leaking out into the bloodstream. Now you have another situation that the body needs to tend to, which is cleaning up of the bloodstream. So there's so many layers of, domino effect here. This does impact this. And so what you eat and when you eat your last meal of the day is really critical to think about for not only quality sleep, but real regenerative system.
Mm. And that could be why fasting is so beneficial to us, is like we take that whole digestive piece out of the equation for a couple days, and we just allow the body to just completely rest in more than one way. Well, and I'd love to talk then about those simple shifts, in addition to maybe eating earlier in the day before you go to bed. What are some simple ways that we can do, some examples of common sleep disruptors that we're exposed to on a daily basis that we may not recognize, and then small shifts that we can make to produce big impacts on our sleep quality?
Yeah, I would love to start with just the fact that people don't have an intentional transition, especially now, as was pointed out earlier, because of a lot of remote work, or just that the standard kind of more regular daily schedule has shifted so much in the last couple of years that there's not real transitions happening, and the cues that the body maybe grew up with or has become innate to the body is no longer that, and there's slight confusion there in general. And most people are just barely, I mean, we have to be realistic, most people are just barely getting through their night, let alone thinking about, oh, did I make sure to cue my body into that it's about time to sleep, because people are already exhausted. It's not even a thought that they would have to implement something to get their body to fall asleep, but it is so important. So some of those things, like just really small habits, would be, light, changing the light in your house at a certain time. And there is some technology. I mean, I could pro and con that all day, but there is some technology where you can get different light bulbs to have different spectrums of light, and at a certain time you can, set it up to where at a certain time it switches from more of the blue light to more of the red light. I know families who just completely forego the lights after dinner, or they eat dinner candlelight, and it's just candlelight in their home from a certain time period on. So light would be one just real simple way, because we're always just turning lights on and off anyway. So it's just part of what you're doing. So it's just a matter of maybe switching what you're doing with what's already happening, which I think is an easy entry, access point to those items. And then another would be sounds, and this is something I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but sounds and smells are very covert, and they are very integral, and they're so hardwired to our brains. And so what sounds are around your home, what sounds are around you at night, can be a huge benefit to just quieting the central nervous system and helping to calm your autonomic nervous system, because sounds are very, as much in some cases, as stimulating as caffeine. And so what you're listening to and what's on in the background, is another thing that you can easily shift, where it's maybe there's no television, maybe it's just a specific type of music that you're listening to while you're having dinner, or it's just the conversation of family. And that's the sounds that you have, that you're exposing your body to in the evenings. And then another one would be, what you're having before bed. So like creating a transition, and of course, the sleep product is a great transition for the evening. It's a tea. It can be made into a different type of drink. Whether you don't want hot tea because it's hot outside, it's about to get warm, and you want something cold and just refreshing. But that is very much a habit, especially in our society, where people like to have an after dinner. I mean, it's called an after dinner drink for a reason.
Yeah.
And so tapping into that already habitual, recognizable, familiar process in the evening is after dinner, having something, incorporating something that is somewhat of a dessert, but is more specifically designed for helping you to sleep. And so those would be some easy things to incorporate. And I think it's also just really critical to mention that it, again, has to be realistic, and it also shouldn't be comparative. So what a lot of people like to do is see what everyone else is doing. And the problem with that is that not anyone else is you. And so understanding what actually is going to work for your family. We have moms who have many kids just running around all over the place, and to compare someone else's nighttime routine with yours is just, honestly, it's not fair. And so grace is really critical in this, and being able to actually tune into what's going to work for you and your family. And if it's only one thing, if it's just lighting, like, have grace for yourself that that's what you've done, and just believe that that is going to be enough for now, until maybe another small habit can be added, as seasons of life change, your children are older, or their bedtime is more consistent or reliable, or like maybe even predictable for that matter. And then one at a time, just small things, doing it one at a time. And what's great, I think, about implementing this is that it helps to identify why sleep is a problem for you in general. Because when you start to think through, like, well, what could I do? You'll start to notice some opposition come up, which maybe they present themselves as excuses. But a lot of it really will help you identify, like, what's really going on. Is it emotional? Is it physical? Is it mental? What are the things that are actually preventing you from resting once you do finally hit the pillow? Because you've been dreaming about it all day already. You've already been thinking about, like, probably since the time you got out of bed, you've been thinking about how amazing it's going to be to get back into bed. So then why is it not working? And when you start to prioritize and intentionally place something there as a way to get you ready, that opposition is going to also give you cues as to, like, what might actually be going on with your body, and why you need assistance in getting that restful sleep that you desire.
That is such a great point. Marlene, would you like to add anything to that?
The noise piece is critical. Having electronics in the bedroom is critical. A lot of talk about the EMF exposure that we have all day, every day, and to not have any of that going on in the bedroom also regulates the energy and allows our our energetic system to calm down naturally. Um, if at all possible, to Wendy's point, everybody's different and everybody has different needs. If you can, turn off the phone several
Mhm.
hours to give the body signal, to give the eyes a break, to not be attuned to that, to not be exposed to that, and turn off the router at night. There's no reason why anybody needs internet at 2 o'clock in the morning. Even if you're awake, try some simple breathing, practices. Daydream, allow yourself to rest instead of revving yourself right back up again by picking up that phone and looking at the screen, because your body's going to go, it's time to get up. Which is why if people do wake up and they look at their screen, chances are they're not going to go back to sleep. So a lot of people who are having that 2 or 3 a.m. wake up and then are pulling the screen,
Mhm.
now you're up, and just about the time your body starts to feel really exhausted again, it's time to get up and start your day. So the screen is critical. As Wendy was saying, your evening rituals. What do you love to do and is easy to do, and make it a new practice with the family? How can you all begin to connect with each other, and just calm down? I remember being little and it was baths and PJs, right? And then everybody got their book and it was quiet time. And then as a family, that's all we did, was just we were quiet, we were clean, we were quiet, and we were ready for bed. And we read our book. And to this day, I still do it. 8 o'clock comes, all my electronics are off, everything's off. I take my shower, my bath, I've got my book, and I will read until the book takes one thing of this. Some nights it's 10:30, other nights it's 9:30. But as soon as that book goes boop, my lights are out. I'm honoring my body. It says, no, sweetheart, we are tired today. You're going to go to sleep. So if I go
Mhm.
to sleep at 9:30 and I wake up at 5, that was a good night, right? Who cares? So it's
Yeah.
just those things, being gentle, have grace, as Wendy said, choose something that works. Choose something that feels really restorative versus extractive.
Yep. I love that. And Wendy, can you describe your sleep ritual for us as well? I mean, we just heard about Marlene's, and I think that's great for people to hear and conceptualize what they can do to really improve their sleep quality.
Yeah, I definitely do the light thing. I tend to go through my house by, well, as soon as the natural light is going down, I tend to try to mimic my internal environment lighting to match. So, the inside of my home seems to be a little bit darker earlier than maybe would be comfortable for some people, but like within, a couple, 20, 30 minutes, it matches. And I silence my phone, so I put my phone on at least focus so that there's no sounds coming from it. In fact, I try to keep my phone on focus all day. So I don't, just because sounds from phone in general are just so stimulating to me that I'm immediately awake. And so silencing the phone, I think, is really critical. And then I use frequency specific music. So there is music that's really amazing. I love whole tones is kind of my go-to because they're really great about putting it in equipment that maintains the frequency so it's not streaming through something, which undoes what they can do in the studio. So having very frequency specific music, because I'm just super sensitive to music, and music is like a remedy to me in general. So that's kind of my background noise in the evening. And then it's journaling or reading, depending on like what I identify as any. If it's just been like a day that I just need to dump all my thoughts so that my mind is free, then I will dump them on paper. And if it's something that I don't really have that, but I feel like I have space to read, then I'll read something that's inspiring and super light. And I think that's another thing a lot of people in our culture is, even though they're reading, it may not be really light reading, and it's actually creating some internal imbalances, that concerns or fears, or if it's evoking fear or if it's evoking anxiety, like that is not a thing to read at night. So I try to
Right.
read something that's just sweet or inspiring, or helps me to kind of dip into that theta brainwave of the dreaminess or the thoughtfulness, and then yeah, I don't know that I have like an exact way like that I know that it's bedtime other than that I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm done. So it's not super prescriptive, but it is very much, something that I've just become aware of for myself. And similarly, if once I know it's time, I don't fight it anymore. I used
Yeah.
to.
Well, that's great. That's super helpful, I think, for people. Um, and I think most people like look to aids like melatonin, which is a common one here and or in the United States as of late to help us go to sleep, or something, more powerful like a prescription. But um, there's a lack of the precursor of our body makes melatonin to help us go to sleep, but toxins like glyphosate that we talk about so much, that there are an abundance of in our environment, are blocking the production of the essential precursors, amino acids that would help our bodies make that melatonin for us, so we don't have to supplement it. L-tryptophan specifically is the precursor to melatonin that regulates that sleep-wake cycle for you. And so the fact that glyphosate is blocking the production of that L-tryptophan in our foods, we're not getting enough of that to begin with. And so I would love to kind of talk a little bit more about the Restful Sleep product that we have developed. I love that it's melatonin free and that we're utilizing that L-tryptophan to help the body make melatonin in an efficient way. And then maybe we can talk and tell everyone about the alternative nightcap that we have come up with.
Yeah, I would love to share about the sleep product. The intention behind it was really to create something that works naturally with the body's cascade. So the body's going to naturally produce its own GABA, its own serotonin, its own melatonin, and of course we do get those cues from our environment as well, which is why it was important to chat about those things ahead of time because we're not going to necessarily just be able to get all of those benefits into a supplement. It does require that we actually get back into like the rhythm of nature and like how our bodies were originally designed. But what's nice about having this product formulated and developed this way is that it works synergistically with shifting the environment and shifting our lifestyles to be more friendly to a restful sleep. It was one of the main things that was highlighted at the beginning of the product development, which was to not have melatonin in it, so that people could help their bodies kind of get back into that natural rhythm of making its own. One of the ingredients to highlight that they've actually done studies on is the saffron. So the saffron, they actually did a study after 28 days of incorporating saffron into as a supplement, their natural melatonin increased naturally in their bodies, and it was measurable. And so saffron is kind of like this, and it's through its antioxidants properties and its effects on like the neurotransmitters that make it beneficial. But a lot of people don't know that about saffron, that it also does contribute to the melatonin production. So that synergistically paired with the L-tryptophan, they like work really well in harmony with each other to create those benefits and those effects. And we want the body to be able to produce its own melatonin. We don't want to, ideally, you don't want exogenous things to come in because then it offsets, it goes up the cascade and now you have multiple imbalances because everything is working together and the feedback from it all is critical. And so just it seems harmless, but yet we know that it's creating a whole bunch of other side effects that can be detrimental to sleep and to other elements of your neurotransmitters or your health in general. So that was a main component of it. And really looking at the synergy of of the different ingredients and putting them together. We know lemon balm is amazing on its own. We know skullcap is amazing on its own. We know chamomile is amazing on its own. But when you start pairing like the ashwagandha with a magnesium, they enhance each other. So it promotes the relaxation. It helps to reduce muscle tension. So if some of the reason you're not sleeping well is physical, maybe you have some physical body inflammation, then the synergy of those two together is going to be helpful. And then the passion flower paired with the skull cap, that helps. Again, they just contribute to each other. They complement each other to relieve stress and anxiety. So if some of your inability to sleep or rest has to do with just your daily life and the stress that you're carrying and the anxiety that you might have, then those two are really key as well. And then ashwagandha and lemon balm are like really synergistic. They complement each other as well to help to just reduce tension. So tension that could be physical, could be mental, could be emotional. And because they're adaptogenic, which is one of the most beautiful things that nature gave us, is adaptogens, how it affects me and how it affects you could be very different. It's going to be able to identify what is missing or what our needs are in the body, and it will tend to those things. And so, while that makes it really challenging to formulate, because I recognize that one thing is going to be super helpful for another person, it might not really contribute at all, but that is the beauty of it. So we definitely like lean into that, knowing that everyone's going to have slightly different results from it. But again, that's also why all of the different ingredients were incorporated, because the desire is that all people have benefit from it. So it's like a little bit of info on how it all came to be and why it was put together the way that it was. But there's definitely a little bit of something in there for everyone, and then synergistically, it can contribute to all the different reasons why people are having a hard time with getting a restful sleep.
I love that. And that is also one of my favorites, the synergies and collaboration. It's like, let's allow nature to work together how it was designed to do so anyway, within us as well. So we will be sending out the nightcap recipe to everyone in the follow-up email. And I did forget to mention at the beginning of this, we are taking questions. So if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A and we will answer those as we can get to them. If you ladies would like to add anything else before we move to questions, I will open the floor up before that happens. Anything from either of you? Are you ready to take some questions?
Ready.
All right. So one of the questions, most of these so far are pertaining to the restful sleep product, but there is one about why it could be that some people don't need to get or do all of those things. They can still successfully get a full night's sleep, even if they're looking at their phones right until bedtime, or they're not playing music, or they're playing loud music. Or why is it that some people are so sensitive to the blue light and the stress, and others don't seem to be as sensitive to it?
That's the beauty of the unique human. Every single person has their own unique ecosystem, and what works for one person might not work for another. And to all those people who can do any of all of those things and lay their head down on the pillow and go to sleep, whew, that's a miracle in and of itself. I wish more people were like that, and sadly in our culture they aren't. But there are those people who, like anything else, why can somebody walk into a really loud room and not be affected? And why are those of us who are really sound sensitive, we can't even go in a loud room because it just doesn't work? Same answer. The beauty of the unique ecosystem of each and every one of us.
And how glorious and beautiful it is.
Indeed.
And so someone else is asking, she reads on her tablet before she goes to bed. Is that a problem for sleep? And I'll let you guys weigh in on any challenges with reading a tablet before bed specifically, if you see any.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that is going to be first and foremost. It definitely has a blue light spectrum to it. I mean, depending on if you have light settings. I mean, there are some apps that you can add to your electronics that change the spectrum of light, how effective those are, or whether or not they actually work to the extent at which is a benefit, I think is going to be up to the individual person. And if your sleep isn't disrupted using it, then I don't know if it's a problem. But if you have noticed that you're not sleeping well, then I would say that, give it an experiment. So, sometimes you just have to self-experiment and just switch to a book for a week and just see if you notice any differences. It's really hard to assess that stuff in the midst of it. You don't really know. I mean, perspective is amazing when you actually remove yourself from a situation and allow yourself to see from a different view. And even just to add to like the last question too, some people might say that they're getting restful sleep doing all those things, but like, do we know? Are they tracking their sleep? And again, that's why I always encourage people not to compare. because it's at best, uh, somewhat of a representation of the truth, but it may not actually be the truth. And so when we're comparing to somebody else's, perception of their sleep and not actually looking at their data of their sleep, um, then we're maybe comparing to something that isn't really working either. So, so I would just say some people may think that they're getting great sleep and they're actually not. And a lot of times people don't even know how bad it was until it actually gets good. So, so
Or
yeah,
catches up with them.
yes, exactly.
And that on that note, of not judging and rolling with the seasons of life that we're in, do you have any tips on how to support good quality sleep in a season of life where that may not be very regular or possible to get a full night in, such as having a new baby? Any tips on how to get good quality sleep out of what you can get in?
Hmm. It really is all about self-care, right? And when you have a new baby, that is the, speaking of, all the focus is on that all of the attention all the time, everything is going toward that baby. The best thing one can do is regulate their sleep and wake cycles to the baby, if that's possible. And when the baby sleeps, you sleep. When the baby's up, you're up. And to really, again, so much grace, be much more gentle, and babies don't like loud noises, and babies don't like bright lights, and babies are coming out of this beautiful, perfect ecosystem where it was quiet, it was dark, it was warm. I got fed on demand. It was amazing. And now, I got kicked, the landlord kicked me out, and I roll out and it's bright and it's loud and there's people screaming and talking and sounds and, you know, so the baby's nervous system needs a nice little regulation too. So there's a lot that goes into that. But self-care is just really, really important during that time.
Yeah, and I feel like um, that is a question I hear a lot as well. And what I would say is limit your information, your access to information, or how much you're reading about what is normal and what is not normal, because a lot of times that is informing the perception. And so as soon as you start to feel like what's happening isn't normal, then you're going to start to feel anxiety about it. And then, as soon as, and the baby's going to be constantly changing, like all the way till they're a teenager, how they sleep and if they sleep. And so if you're looking for things to be normal or a certain way, then your response to that is going to also be very stimulating. And then that's also going to, be offsetting to the infant. And so creating in like a very intentional and peaceful atmosphere between you and your infant based on what you're learning about your infant. And I would say minimize as much external information, like designate like a person or two people to like speak into that part of your life, but otherwise, really assess that for yourself, because all the information out there, I see majority of it, I'd say 90% of it is just creating more fear and anxiety, and only 10% of it is actually helpful and contributing in a positive way. So it's just such a nuanced situation that like no one else is going to be able to like give you an exact science for it. So the more peace you have about it, the more restful you'll be, which will also tend to how deep and how good your sleep becomes. So limit that information. Don't go out to Google, like Dr. Google, about that stuff, is my advice.
Oh, thank you both. That was great advice. The next couple questions I might just try to lump into one. I'm going to address one of them first. Somebody asked, what is the best way to address leaky gut? Take your eye on gut support. It is the only supplement out there proven with peer-reviewed science to support the gut lining in as little as 16 minutes, even when there are toxins present like glyphosate or gluten. It increases nutrient absorption. So take your gut support to help with the leaky gut. Now, back to the restful sleep product. So people are asking what time you should drink it, if there are any supplements, medications, or et cetera that interact negatively with restful sleep. And on the topic of the last question, is it safe to consume during pregnancy or while nursing?
So the overarching and proper answer to all of them except for what time is discuss with your practitioner, discuss with your doctor, again, because everyone is so very different. We don't recommend it during pregnancy. That's, the recommendation. There's a lot of herbs in there that, again, because they're adaptogenic, it's just something that you really need to work with your physician on specifically. And that would go for pretty much every supplement. I don't think there's a supplement on the market, with the exception of the ones that specifically are formulated for during pregnancy, or prenatal seasons, that would say, hey, this is great to take during pregnancy. You should always resort to your practitioner and filtering it through whoever your care provider is. As far as what time, some people, this particular product kicks in immediate. They drink it and they're like, I just had, in fact, my daughter had some the other night for the first time, and she said, I feel like I'm floating. And it was while she was drinking it still. So there's that. And then there's people who need 30 minutes for it to break down and take effect. So I would say, again, that's an opportunity to self experiment, try at different times and see, what you notice and when works best for you. I think the recommendation on the package is like 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes before bed, because when we developed the product and we had a lot of different input and people taking the product, that was kind of like the average time frame to take it. So
Unmute. Could you talk a little bit about cycling, the nature dosing that we've used, and that might be a new term for you guys, but it is something we've talked about internally about the amounts of the elements we've used in these products being in a lower dose than you might see in other products, and why we recommend the cycling, the 20-day, for instance, pack for a month. Can you explain why we formulated and packaged it that way?
yeah, and I'd also love Marlene to weigh in on this because I know she has a very similar vantage point of this, but I can, from the development standpoint, um, you know, again, we like to defer to nature. And there's never been a time in our evolution where we had the exact same things at the exact same dose at the exact same times every single day. And so when the goal is to nourish the body, to support the body in its natural rhythms and its natural cascading of events, its natural healing processes, we want to give it opportunities to do it all by itself and not be reliant and not be requiring some exogenous version of something to help them. That being said, of course, we know because of all the different toxins that our bodies deal with and because of the life stresses that we deal with and some other epigenetic factors that supplementation is very, very helpful, but it's not necessarily helpful for the long-term vision, which is for us to just be whole, healthy people, to be super reliant on the exact same thing. So in one way, to do it every single day is not in alignment with nature. It's not natural. It's never been that way. It will probably never be that way. And then for the other reason is that, we want to encourage the body to be able to get back onto its own rhythms and to be able to do these things on its own and be able to lean on that sleep when there's a shift in your household or you're traveling or you're not feeling well or there's other imbalances that may come up. So that's really why it came with that recommendation, why we decided to formulate it from that vantage point, and why you'll see that same recommendation on pretty much every SKU line in the plus lines.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And then the last question that we have in the queue right now, I would love oh, I'm sorry, Marlene, if you want to piggyback on that rest, that need for cycling on and off with anything and nature dosing, not hitting ourselves over the head with 1,000 milligrams of everything that we take.
So yeah, supporting everything that Wendi said,
Oh, no.
biodiversity is really critical for our body in every
Xander, if you're on the internet, I need you to.
Biodiversity is really important for our ecosystems. So when we give the body what it needs, when it needs it, and to Wendi's point, sometimes those needs change. Sometimes we need to elevate the amount of fluids we take in, and sometimes we need to decrease them. So the body responds as nature does to variety and stimulation. So when we can follow its natural rhythms and give it what it needs, it's the minimal effective dose, right? As much as necessary, as little as possible, let the body do its job.
Love that. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I may have missed some of that, but I loved the end of it. It was beautiful. And then last question here. I would love to tap both of you for this. And Marlene, if you want to start us off, what are your thoughts, if any, on sleep monitors like watches and Aura rings and stuff like that that you're supposed to wear during sleep? Um, just any thoughts you have on those?
Well, that again is a very personal decision. There is no should in anything. And I personally don't like anything on me when I sleep because that impedes my ability for my body to relax. That's
Mm.
just me. That said, a lot of people like to gather the data. Like Wendi said, if you actually aren't really sure the quality of your sleep and you're wearing an Aura ring and it doesn't bother you to do that, or you wear a watch to track your sleep patterns because you would like some more information,
Mhm.
then and it works for you, great. There is no should. There is, is it something that is beneficial to you? Do you find that information helpful and supportive? And is it comfortable for you? I would say that would be the determining factors of if it's a good thing for me or not.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I always feel like again, it's there in order to assess something, sometimes you need to gather data. And so if it's just for a time frame, a week, and then go without it for 3 weeks and do it again for a week to see if any improvements have been made, at least you have a baseline to compare against.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, those wearables don't necessarily have to be worn like 24/7. It doesn't reduce their ability to track your sleep. So I think just having the freedom to utilize technology to the extent at which you feel like it's helpful to you, and then leave it when you think you've got what you need from it.
And the other thing that I would like to highlight too is the invitation is really to listen to our bodies more than we do. And if we're dependent on a device to tell us what our body is doing, it kind of interferes with the purpose of me listening to my body
If
and letting
any,
my body speak to me in ways that I can respond accordingly. So, yeah, it's kind of like a seatbelt. Use it when necessary, and you don't walk around all day with a seatbelt on. So,
Mm.
that is a very good analogy. Well, thank you both so much. I think that wraps up our questions, and we're almost out of time anyway. So I just wanted to thank you both for sharing your valuable wisdom and insights with us and with our audience. We covered how to prioritize your sleep environment. So reducing blue light, creating a cool, dark space is going to help you get into that rest mode. Support your gut health. Take your eye on gut support. A healthy gut is going to promote better rest and recovery. And so, luckily, we've got you covered there. Ditch the sleep disruptors, skip late night snacks, alcohol, melatonin-based aids, and then establish a sleep ritual for yourself. Wind down with self-care, relaxation, a natural nightcap, such as our incredible new Ion Restful Sleep product. We'll send you the recipe for that. And to help you have the most restorative and restful nights possible, we are going to be emailing you an exclusive discount on that product. So keep an eye out on your inbox for that. And we hope to be bringing you more information like this in the future. So we hope you found this valuable. Let us know if you did. Reach out to us at info@intelligenceofnature with any questions you have in follow-up. And you can find these ladies on their respective websites. Reach out to them if you wish for more information or some of their services. And we wish you all a very happy day and very restful nights. Thank you for being here with us. Sweet dreams, everybody.